Welcome to Your Cup of Counsel. On this episode, we're talking about all things social media. So, whether your employer can or can't fire you for that post, what you should and shouldn't post about your personal injury accident and lawsuit that's pending. We're going to dive a little bit into the Coldplay scandal with the CEO who was a little intimate with someone else in a C suite position. And we're drinking ritual coffee from San Francisco, one of our favorites. Please like, share, subscribe, listen in. Tamara,
Andje.
let's talk about social media.
Okay.
So, social media, either how it can impact you at work, if you can say whatever you want on the internet, does your employer have any rights to curtail your speech on the internet? Why don't we start with that?
Sure. So it sort of depends, like most things. Um, okay, so let's just back up for a second. In California, an employer can fire you for any reason. Everybody in California is an at-will employee, and in most states, that's the law. That means they can fire you for any reason as long as it's not an unlawful reason. So that means if they have a business justification for firing you, if what you've done on social media, for example, does not align with their brand image and they think that you've represented them in a poor way, that's a lawful reason to discipline someone or reprimand them, anything like that.
Wait, hold on. So, if I'm on my own social media platform
Yeah,
and I'm talking politics, for example, and I make some political statement.
politics is different. So let's start with the default rules. Okay. So if you're doing something extremely embarrassing and the company believes that is not representing the brand poorly, this usually doesn't come up unless you're a high level executive,
Okay.
because most people aren't going to look at someone's social media and associate them directly with their company unless you are like a public facing human.
That
So
was
for
my
the
question.
most part,
That was my question.
for the
It's like,
most part,
how does what I do impact my company's brand?
yeah. For the most part, that reasoning applies to higher level people because, frankly, HR departments aren't like monitoring every single employee's social media. That they wouldn't have the time for that necessarily. So they can technically fire you. Now, does it happen often? No. Have we seen it in current events at a particular Coldplay concert, for example? Yes. And we can dig into all of the employment related issues surrounding that whole debacle. But in general, if you're doing things on social media that are embarrassing or that the business thinks is not a good business choice for them to employ you, then yeah, they can decide. I mean, they can decide they don't like the color of your shirt that day and fire you for that reason. It doesn't happen very often because that's not that most companies don't just want to fire people for no reason or for silly reasons, but they're lawfully allowed to. Now, there are a couple of carve outs for protected activity that an employer cannot use as a basis to discipline or fire you if they see you doing this on social media. So political activity is one that usually is not a basis. They are not allowed to. In California, there's these two labor code statutes that protect. They say that an employer can't make a policy that punishes employees for having a certain political view. And it kind of goes into free speech issues. You're allowed to have your politics, you're allowed to do your thing. The reason I say this depends is because it can be a little bit complicated if an employee is coming into the workplace with really loud political views that are really offensive to other people. And there's some teasing apart that has to happen there, right? But if we're talking about off-duty time with your social media, there's certain protected things that you're allowed to do. Political speech. If you're reporting workplace issue, unlawful workplace behavior, right? If you're reporting sexual harassment, if you're reporting on social media, something you think is unlawful, that just goes back to the protected activity that would be protected in the workplace.
That's like
anyway,
whistleblowing.
Right. Yeah. So there's carve outs here and there, but in general, the old adage of like, don't post things that are generally that you might regret or that you wouldn't want your employer to see, because everything you post on social media is viewable by everybody, including your employer. And obviously the other caveat too is like confidential or trade secret information. If you're in a particular position where you have your access to confidential information or proprietary stuff and you're posting that, then that would obviously also be grounds for discipline or termination.
Yeah. Okay, so if
Mhm.
you've got inside knowledge of a big company merger that
Yeah.
could impact stock prices, that's not something you should put on social media.
Right, or you're inventing something. You work at a biotech firm and you're an engineer and you have some proprietary like formula that you're working on that nobody else knows about and you start blasting it. I mean, these days if you're in that type of field, most employees are signing confidentiality agreements and the scope of what you're allowed to disclose will be there. But companies are very, very strict about that for good reason. They have that is all dollars to them, right?
Right.
Keeping all of that secretive is an important part of the business. So that would obviously also be something you don't want to do.
Yeah. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk politics without talking politics. I feel like everything is political
Mhm.
and every interaction somehow is of lately tied to politics, right? Like how you feel about certain religious issues or the American flag, for example, is now can be polarizing between different camps.
Mhm.
So how do you know whether speech that you're putting out has a political protection or not?
Well, and I want to be clear. So, your political affiliation is not a protected class. Okay. I get this question a lot. So, there's a couple of companies in the Bay Area that are known for being, quote, more liberal than others,
Mhm.
tech companies, or at least they were. That this has shifted a little bit recently, but in the past there were companies that were a little more liberal leaning, and there have been a group of conservative folks who believe that they are being discriminated against based on their political affiliation. That is not expressly a protected class in California. But what I think we're talking about is the idea that everybody is allowed to have their political views, and your workplace is not allowed to impose or punish you for free speech for expressing your political views.
Got
So
it.
it's a strange distinction, but I think you know maybe I'm a traditionalist, and maybe it's also partly because I'm Canadian and I did not grow up in the political climate of this country. But I think the best advice I have is to try to keep your political views out of the workplace, because you just don't know where other people stand. And if the goal is just to go to work and do work together and do your job together, I think the hope would be that you could do that without engaging in too much political discourse, because again, it does have this effect in our very divisive society of dividing people and making you feel alienated and that kind of thing. So that's not really an employment lawyer advice, although it probably sort of is. It's more just human advice than
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
But social media, so tell us how that comes up in your cases, if at all, in PI cases.
So in PI cases, a lot of times clients will call and say, "Can I talk about my accident on social media?" Or sometimes there's news coverage of the accident and they'll want to like reshare the reel that like was the on-scene footage, or sometimes there's dash cam footage and they want to pop that on and go on a little rant about they can't believe this person cut them off and did X, Y, and Z. So if I've spoken to them before they've made the post, I will say, please keep everything case related, accident related off social media. It serves no purpose. It's not good for your case. Emotionally, it's not good. People are going to jump in the comments and start commenting. And that's a whole nother, path that you're going to be down that you want to stay out of. But if they've already posted something legally, I can't tell anyone to take anything down. That's an ethical violation. It's spoliation of evidence. So if they've put something out into public already, I cannot give them legal advice to take it down. So hopefully they've reached out to me before they've made any kind of post, and I can say, let's not do that. I know it's tempting. Let's keep that to ourselves. I always tell people though, regardless of whether they're talking about their accident or not, make all of your profiles private.
Mhm.
So there is this campaign in a personal injury case to find evidence against a plaintiff. The insurance
Mhm.
companies hire investigators, they download your entire social media footprint. They're looking for posts that either make you having a certain political affiliation that they think is a poor choice, or you're drinking with friends and they want to put you in kind of a negative light,
Mhm.
or if it's a like a rape case or a sexual assault case and they see you dating multiple partners, then they'll
Mhm.
want to highlight that. So they're going to go on and try and grab some stuff from your social media to use offensively in an offensive manner against you in your case. So I
Mhm.
always say shut everything off, turn it to private so that people don't have access to it. And then don't post anything about your accident because that can always come back and bite you
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, well, I do the same thing in our cases. Yeah, it's really gross to see what the other side comes up with, what the defense bar comes up with. in this regard a lot of times, because it's like, just because like you have this horrendous thing happen to you as a human, right? Whether it's an accident or being fired from your job or being a sexual assault victim or whatever it is, and you have moments of joy still in life, and those happen to be captured online, right? And then for those to be used as an argument that you're not that harmed from this
Mhm.
horrible thing and that really everything's fine, so the jury shouldn't award, damages because look at her vacationing or whatever it is. Yeah, it just doesn't help. It never really helps. And the other thing, as you were talking, that I remembered is, if this ever comes up for anyone, an employer can never ask you for your social media passwords. So
Mm.
this is actually a statute. The legislature put this into a statute that, because employers, I guess, were asking for this information, there was a need for it, but you don't ever have to give that up to your employer if they're ever asking to log into your social media
I
platforms.
can't imagine the context in which an employer would ask for your social media credentials.
Yeah, it's a statute. So there you go.
That's wild.
Hmm.
Okay.
Let's talk about this Coldplay scenario, this Coldplay concert, because I got a lot of questions about this, and I have had a couple of cases that involve workplace romance, and it's a very common question. And I also get potential clients that ask me if they can date their coworkers or their supervisors or whatever. So here's the basics. There are a lot of workplaces these days that will have what are called consensual workplace romance policies. And you read the policy, and you basically, what the policy says is, if two people are consenting to be romantic with each other, that it's usually okay. I mean, the times where it's usually okay is if they're lateral employees.
Mhm.
And the reason for that, and meaning they're on the same level, right? The reason for that is because in California, um, it is illegal to condition favors or benefits in the workplace on romantic or sexual things, meaning it's what we call quid pro quo,
Right.
right? So you can't, if I'm someone's boss, I can't say I'll promote you if you do the XYZ sexual thing.
Right.
Um, and so the workplace policies try to kind of get around that, or address that by saying, we know that this is a thing that happens sometimes, but we're just not going to allow it if you're on a different hierarchical level.
Mhm.
Does it?
Can you do it with consent? Like, can you go to HR and say, "I fell in love with my boss, like, we want your blessing?" Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
it just depends. I've seen that happen. So I represented somebody who was dating somebody lower than him on the hierarchy. They both went to the CEO and said, we're both being open about this. We want to engage in, we're romantic with each other, we're dating, whatever. And the CEO asked them to put that in writing, basically to say, like, we're adults, we're all adults here, and we're going
Mhm.
to do this on our own. And they did, and there was other litigation that had to happen, not as a result of their relationship, but that was how that company dealt with it, right? The reason that it imposes some risk on the company and why there's policies like this is because relationships end, and when things break up, people can be very upset about that, and those emotions can come out in sort of strange ways, whether
Mhm.
it's someone sabotaging someone else or trying to get revenge or whatever, however that plays out, and then litigation ensuing from that.
Do you ever give
So
advice to employers? Like, if we have any listeners that have small businesses, about whether you should or shouldn't have, like, a employee relationship policy?
I don't, because I only represent plaintiffs. So that would be a defense attorney question.
Okay.
And I mean, I think probably the common thought or the common advice would be, whatever you have putting in things into writing is better, is
Mm.
more favorable, right? It's more helpful. And the other thing is, workplace romance is probably going to happen anyway. And so you might as well, as an employer or as an employee, have a written record of whatever your view of it
Your
is. You know what I mean?
expectations are, at least.
Right,
Yeah.
right. On one side or the other. Um, but going back to the Coldplay concert, that was a situation where two people that were on different levels of the hierarchy were dating. And I know that the man was married. Do you know if the woman was also married?
I think they both
Oh,
were.
they both were. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Me
We'll
neither.
have to fact check that.
We will. Yes. But the big thing there, and it sort of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, was that This is a man who's the CEO. So undoubtedly a public facing figure for the company, probably the public facing figure, right? The figurehead of the company. And the company, the board, presumably, saw this video and believed that it reflected poorly on the company's values. So it was a values proposition for them and a business decision to have the CEO exit the company. Um, would it have been different if the CEO was single? Maybe, maybe that wouldn't have been such a values proposition. So that's sort of what happened there. And I don't know if they had a workplace romance policy, but again, I don't know that it would matter
Mhm.
because it was about the way that the brand was being portrayed in that moment, right? And as the CEO, I think you do have a reasonable expectation that you are the public facing figure of
Mhm.
that. So, and then, there's other parts of it, like the fact that right when the camera went on them, they both hid and freaked out. And that's also sort of not the best judgment moment,
Right.
necessarily. They knew that they were hiding and doing something they shouldn't have been doing. So, anyway, that's my view of
Yeah.
that. I don't know what their romance policy was at the company. I don't really think it matters. And I think that people, I mean, listen, CEOs are asked to step down for way less serious reasons than that. I mean, CEOs will be asked to step down if there's a bad business deal or something that
Mhm.
that they're responsible for, right? So yeah, we see it all the time. It's just not usually as public as this one was.
Right. Very public.
Hmm. And then they hired Gwyneth Paltrow to do some PR for them after the
I
fact,
saw that. Very
which was
interesting.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, so what we've talked about protected areas on social media. Basically, employers can fire you for any reason, including content that you put on your social media, unless it's protected.
Yep, basically.
Um, oh, let me tell you this because I think this is interesting. Sometimes I use social media posts as like affirmative evidence in a case.
Oh,
So I did this recently where I had a young client, healthy, lively, living her best life, very active on social media. So she would post travel photos, hiking photos, dog walking photos. So we had this whole wonderful, historically rich content for like years and years and years on her social media that I was able to download, share with the defense. Because after, unfortunately, this horrific accident, her social media goes dark,
mm,
right? She doesn't have the hikes and the relationships, and she's in therapies and in
beautiful.
hospital.
I
And
mean,
so
not beautiful, but
from an
from
evidentiary standpoint, beautiful. From
yes.
a life standpoint, very, very heartbreaking and unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that social media is, for a lot of people that are very active, can be like a capsule of your life.
Yeah.
And it really helps us portray how full and rich someone's life was before a tragedy, and then kind of the tapering or going dark, so to speak, after tragedies hit.
Yep.
And that can
Absolutely.
really come through for presenting evidence to a jury for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like our job is so strange because I think people, everyone thinks of trial lawyers in a certain way, but our job is really to like tell a story. Like we're sort of like cinematographers a little bit, right? And you're trying to tell a group of strangers who have never met your client, have no idea about their injury, have no idea about the impact that this injury has had on their life. And I'm speaking more in your cases, but my cases have injuries, they're just not physical.
Mhm.
um, but it's our job to educate strangers about this, right? And so as you're talking, I'm actually seeing the graphic that we would put together to show the jury of this, right? It would almost be like a timeline with a bunch of different like beautiful photos of life, 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 amazing life, 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 and then this pinnacle event that changes everything, and then like darkness after that,
Mhm.
right? And it's sort of like you're an anthropologist, like you're trying to pull the historical evidence of this person's life in a way that a jury, a group of strangers can look at and understand. And
Yeah,
social media is helpful for that
absolutely.
if you're a prolific poster, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, like anything else. There's benefits to social media, and then there's really big drawbacks.
Mhm.
And I think that if you are in an accident or you are in a situation where you think litigation might be coming, um, stopping posting is or shutting down your social media completely is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And I have clients who are in their 20s and 30s and younger that absolutely can't even imagine not posting on social media. But if you're in a civil litigation, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you have to make life changes.
Well,
Okay.
and then for the people that can't shut it off, I mean, people have to live their life, and
Yeah,
that's
I
fine. And
know.
so I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm giving someone advice
Yeah.
to make their case strong, but their life, having kind of impacts in their life. I always tell people it's better to have a good life than a good case.
Mhm.
Take care of yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, all the things that you need to do to be in the most positive space to move forward, and let me worry about the case. And so
Mhm.
I can give you advice on certain things that I think you should do. Maybe not being so prolific on social media is one of them. But if that just doesn't set right with you, then you do what's important and best for you. And I have seen where it comes up in a case where someone is injured. They continue to post on social media, not as frequently, not hiking, but maybe they'll take like a photo of a cappuccino mug or something. They're out having a cup of coffee with a friend. And then the defense will get into trial and they'll say, look at all these posts, post incident. She's having coffee with a friend. She's, going to wine country and she's having a glass of wine. And then you have to just kind of get into the nuanced argument. Well, it's not the hiking and it's not the traveling. These are much more
Mhm.
subdued moments. And she's still trying to live her life and still
Mhm.
trying to have moments of happiness. And also, I mean, everyone knows that social media isn't always life, right? Like you only share your best moments.
Yep.
So if she hasn't posted in 4 days, maybe it was, 4 days of therapy and pain, and then one cup of coffee with a friend. All the world is saying, the outward facing is the cup of coffee with a friend.
Yeah.
So we as trial counsel have to put that narrative together and make sure that that storytelling is coming through for the jury.
Yeah. And that's our job.
Yeah.
Whether it's easy or it's hard, that's our job.
And it's a great job.
It
It's
is a great
super
job.
fun,
It
super
is.
rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about our coffee today. So we have Ritual El Vergel. This is El Vergel. This is from Mexico. Honeydew, melon, cacao, and floral.
So I think the bean is from Mexico,
Yes.
but it's made in San Francisco,
Oh.
and there are locations all over the city.
Why am I talking about this? You know way more than I do.
My favorite location is in Hayes Valley.
Mm.
Go there all the time on the weekends. It's such a lovely, sunny spot. If you're out and about trying to enjoy the city, grab a cup of coffee, walk into some shops, walk your dog. Hayes Valley has a great vibe.
Nice. I
Yeah.
love that. Did you know that there's 4 different ways that you can taste and measure the taste of coffee?
Tell me more.
Aroma, body, flavor, and aftertaste. So the aroma of this one, Andje, because I think you'd like to know,
Absolutely would.
is sweet, nutty, and bright.
Hmm. Love it.
I think you're a little sweet, nutty, and bright.
Back at you, babe.
Cheers.
Cheers.